Hi, it's Donna from Cozy Chats, and today I'm very excited to share with you one of the building blocks I used when I started the soul transformation of my life after my near-death experience. I had mentioned before in some of my videos that I didn't have a language. I didn't have a language here on earth. Nobody can really experience a near-death experience, right? Most people, when they do, they pass over. But when I went to try to tell people what my experience was like, there were no words. There were no words in my understanding of language and my vocabulary. I didn't have the words that I could use to express my experience of what happened when I entered this place of the infinite consciousness, where for a few brief moments, I really don't know how long, I don't even have a way to put it into time, but I entered this consciousness that weaves between each of us like our breath. And in that consciousness, I understood all the harm I caused people. I understood the reason that they harmed me. I understood why my life, what my purpose was. I can't explain it, but it was like I was part of a river that was rushing through everything. And I have to use metaphors because, again, I don't have a vocabulary here in this life to talk about the realm of the unknown. I don't know if there's a heaven. I don't truly know that when our bodies die, if our mind, if our soul continues, it seems as if it does, but I truly would be an absolute fool to declare that I know there is a heaven after this or anything like that, because nobody has gone on and truly ever came back. So there's a lot of people who, I can't speak one way or the other. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to be foolish enough to lead people to believe that there's something, and I'm also not foolish enough to tell people that there's nothing to live for. But what I did understand during this moment, this near-death experience that I had, I understood the power of the breath and the power of words, and everything I had ever learned, all the vocabulary I had ever learned, all the books I had ever read, everything started to make sense. Every word that was in a movie, everything, I started to realize the power of the spoken word, which is in the Torah in the beginning. The master designer, the quantum physics, if you will, the creative force. It is in the metaphor that we're told about the creation story, is that it used words to create the earth, to create the world. And I started to understand, when I had this experience, I started to understand that your words craft your experience. They either take you towards a good and wholesome and healthy place, or they take you towards a very dark, very dead-end, animal existence where you just don't have that element of humankind. And I realized that I could become the architect of my life, of my world, of my reality by what I said. When I started going through my divorce, I would say things just, I don't know, I guess I picked it up from Lifetime movies when I was a young woman home with my kids. I don't know what it was, but I would say things like, this divorce is killing me. My husband is going to cause me to have a heart attack. The stress from this divorce is going to cause me to have a heart attack. I would say those words. And lo and behold, I had a heart attack. I was 49 years old, and I had a massive heart attack. And it was so not typical of a heart attack. I had been a vegan vegetarian. I was a vegetarian, but I mostly ate vegan for like 4 or 5 years. And I also was in the best health of my life. I had lost like 120 pounds. I worked out every day. It was like a 2-hour workout. And I was really physically in a place where a heart attack shouldn't have happened. And my heart attack happened on a Saturday in the early evening. So everything about this heart attack was just not typical. It wasn't typical. And after I had my near-death experience during this episode, maybe it was a near-death experience. I really don't know. But my understanding of the power of my words, and what words really mean and what they do totally started to transform my world. And my daughter brought home this book. Her and her older brother went to the bookstore, and they had gotten this book. And I was gifted this book many years ago, but I didn't really read it. But then my daughter started reading it, and there was a group at the Mindfulness Center in the town next to ours. And so she started going to that, and then she wanted me to come to it because she knew I loved the book, and it was very close to this near-death experience that I had had. So I got to really work through this book with some really wonderful people, and it just started confirming everything that I experienced in my near-death experience. It just started confirming all these ideas that were being laid down. And I started to realize the importance of my words. And I come from I just can't come from a place where I was a very bad gossip. I would talk about people on the news. I would talk about how they looked or how they sounded or how they used their hands too much. I would talk about my coworkers. I would talk about my employees when I got them. I would talk about everyone. And even when I would have interactions with, I live in a small town, so the clerks at the grocery stores would get to know me, and even when I'd go through the line, somehow I would talk about other people, and my life was really awful, and I had gone up, like I had told you, I had lost 120 pounds, but I had also grew prior to that 120 pounds. And I started realizing something within me. It wasn't necessarily being a glutton with the food that I was taking in. Something was wrong where I was a glutton for the words I would let out of my mouth. Not what I necessarily was putting in my mouth was making me unhealthy, but what I was indulging in going out of my mouth was absolutely gluttonous. And so I started to really chip away and really look to examine myself, because especially during my divorce, when I felt like my husband was talking about me, I felt like the friends that knew us were talking about me, I felt like I was harshly judged by his family because they only had ever heard like one side of the story. I've never even had coffee with my sister-in-laws, and I would get I would wake up on certain days, or even, if my employees were talking bad about me, whatever it was, I could just feel something felt uncomfortable. When people were starting to talk about me, I could just sense the days where I was just the topic of a conversation, and it wasn't pleasant. And then I started having these little sensations. And then when I had my near-death experience, I entered this consciousness, this stream of consciousness where I could pick up the consciousness, the feelings, the intent. I could feel all the damage that I caused other people, even when people didn't hear me personally talking about them. And even if the person that I may have been talking to about that person didn't share that I, go on and tell them, I realized that I was truly sending out bad energy, and it was bad for me, it was bad for them, and I felt so guilty. All the pain that I felt when I found out other people were talking about me, or sharing half-truths or untruths, which is all, I did that as well. So when I entered this near-death experience, and I came into the consciousness where I could feel the damage that I had done, I could not handle it. I don't know if this is what hell would be, is to be in that state and relive every single time you sent out bad energy, bad thoughts, bad words, or bad deeds towards people on the news or people in the grocery store. It was awful. It was really, really awful. I hated the way I felt. And then when I decided, and this book really helped, because the first agreement is to be impeccable with your words, to be impeccable. And in the Christian writings, it says that it's speaking metaphorically, and it's not speaking literally. But what Jesus had said was, let your yes be yes, and your no be no, because anything else that you have to say most likely comes from the evil source or the ego. So we have two superpowers that are working with us. And one is our ego, one is the beast, one is the 666, one is the Antichrist, and one is altruistic. One has the Messiah behaviors, one has the law of God behaviors, one has the rules for the living in the kingdom of God, having the kingdom of God, right? So we have these two forces that are always in battling with each other. And oh my gosh, 2020, we all seen how political pundits, how broadcasters, how neighbors, how people in our social media, we just talked too much and we said too much. And now we see that those words that we really, we were saying, kind of being vain and boastful, really, really caused the greatest fall of a president. Never before have we ever seen anything. And it really was brought on by our false news that we generate, somebody else's false news, this pendulum effect where if I talk bad about your person, you're going to talk bad about my person. And even when we are boastful, there's a law in Judaism called Lashon Hara, where even if you speak good or tell good news to certain people, about certain people, you actually are provoking them to feel hatred towards another. So, if you say, oh, did you know your cousin is getting a new home? It's a beautiful home. You should be so proud. Well, you might be saying that to a cousin who really is in conflict, and that causes conflict and turmoil. So, I would encourage people, let's just not talk about politics. Let's not talk about this stuff. And if we could have, I know it wouldn't have escalated, but it did escalate. And it escalated to a point now where people are going to be held accountable with federal criminal laws because of their words, and if their words provoked certain situations. So this is a great time. This is a great year. And even with COVID, the fact that, it's something about covering our mouths, what goes in and what goes out from us. We can spread disease. And certain people, they can tolerate a disease, they can fight a disease, but there are some that what comes out of your mouth may absolutely hit them in their weakest place and destroy them and kill them. So we don't want to do that. What we want is to take charge and be impeccable with our words. We want to be the architect of a new world. We want to speak good things. We want to be good and good to each other. We want to get to a place where once we start realizing how important it is to be impeccable with our words, we don't become arrogant in it. We actually become in a state where we are so compassionate because we know what we've done with our words. So you have this feeling, this ability to forgive other people that have harmed you with their words. And it's a beautiful place. And if I'm a big believer, if you notice, I always use the hashtag each one teach one. I believe that each one teach one. If you come across somebody who's got a good message for you, and it's going to change the world, but you have to sign up for a course or a book. I do believe there's good purpose of buying this book. But if somebody tries to sell you anything to get you into this manifestation type of thing, if anybody truly knows what will bring about the betterment of humanity, who've been able to funnel in the understanding of what life is and what it's meant to do and what we're meant to do during this life, they will not charge you. They will not. Somehow, I've mentioned this before, the universe, people gift them. People would support, if people supported me on this platform, that would generate a providence for me, a provision for me. But it's something that you would want to do. Or the universe gives people great business ideas or great investment ideas. So the universe, you don't have to sell goodness. If you have the understanding of what is going to change the world for the better, nobody's going to sell it. So this time of year, there's a lot of MLMs, there's a lot of lifestyle coaches that will really build you up and pull your money. And if you don't succeed, it's simply, you just didn't want it enough. But the truth is, when you start doing the simple things, you're going to see your life transform. When you stop, and if you choose to stop this year and you choose to make a difference today, make today a day of demarcation where you can tell the difference between your life prior to today and your life after today. And you are ready and you are willing and you start to monitor not only what goes into your mouth. I'm a big believer in eating healthy and clean. I always will eat halal or kosher because it's a beautiful discipline and it makes me feel better. But what goes into your mouth, if you keep it kosher, if you keep it halal, if you keep it clean, be ever so much more aware of what comes out of your mouth, what you're saying about your day, your week, your work, your spouse, your children, yourself. Be very mindful of when you speak about others, because there is an accounting that goes along with our words. When we say blessings and good things and compliments and good instruction to people, we get funds from the divine source, and we make a deposit in someone else's account, and we make a deposit in our own account. But when we gossip or talk bad or send bad thoughts or energies to another, we lose funds out of our account and it goes into the other person's account. And it's just not worth it. It's not worth it. It makes you ugly to talk about somebody else, to fault find, to remind people of somebody else's past. It's ugly. It's an ugly thing, and we don't want to be it. We want to model the divine providence that speaks life, that puts perpetuating seeds out there. So life is effortless. So we go into a land of milk and honey, milk that it's abundant. After a calf is done feeding and it doesn't need the milk anymore, the cow has this abundance. It's left over. It doesn't cost anything extra. It's not taken away from anything. The same with honey. When honey is produced and it's used accordingly by the bees, and when they leave and it's left over, that's the way where our provision is. It takes care of everything that needs taken care of, and then there's this residual that's left over, so we don't have to struggle, we don't have to work, and there is a manifestation to a great life. And to me, it begins. I'm going to get into Neville Goddard as well. I love his teaching. I'm so glad I came across it. But it all has to do with what you say, what you think, and what you see happening in your life. I am so glad you guys stayed with me till the end of this video. I would love it if you subscribed. If you would like me to subscribe to you, if you go into the comments and just leave a period or a comma, or actually, some dialogue, that will let me know that you would like me to follow you, and I would love that. I think that there is a army of people being raised up that are ready to put good out into the world, to be the good. They're tired of waiting for a Messiah. They are ready to be they're ready to be what they need in the world. And it's a wonderful rising up. It's just an exciting time. The darker it gets, the more powerful even a single light is. We're in a great place in history right now to really see good things come about. So I want to share that with you guys. I'm going to go more in depth with my near-death experience and what all that brought about in my world. And I would love to hear if any of you guys have had a near-death experience or near-death experience, or even if you've done DMT or you've had any kind of awakening moment. I would love to hear it. That fascinates me, and I think we all can kind of hear a dialect, like we come from the same town when we start talking about our experiences, and I think that's really exciting, and it confirms so much. So I'm going to share a lot of this kind of stuff. If this is your thing, please come along with me, and I'm just excited. I'm so glad that I'm finally brave enough to get this out. I love you guys, and I will probably see you tomorrow. Bye.